We know that Black history is American history, too often limited to tales of blood and struggle, and less portrayed in stories of joy and unsurpassed achievement. Colorado is particularly rich in this history, as evidenced by the many figures living in our state who embody the challenges and triumphs unique to Black people. High school student Joshua Ray had the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to sit down with both Hughes Van Ellis, one of the last known survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, and Ed Dwight, the first Black astronaut candidate and acclaimed sculptor. The three met at Ed Dwight's Denver-based art studio, where Joshua spoke with Mr. Dwight and Mr. Ellis. He spoke to them about their lives and achievements. Not surprisingly, Joshua sought their words of advice for young people like himself.
My name is Joshua Ray, and it was a pleasure meeting you and talking about all the things that you accomplished.
Okay.
Like I said, thank you, Mr. Hughes Van Ellis, also affectionately known as Uncle Red, for this opportunity. It is an honor to have this opportunity to interview you and learn more about your legacy. I understand that you have a nickname, Uncle Red, and I wanted to know why this nickname was given to you.
They tell me when I was a small kid, they said I had red hair, so my dad named it Red. So most of my brothers didn't even know my name the way up here. They always called me Red.
What are some things that you're passionate about?
I'm passionate about a good life. I like a good family, go out and sit down and talk. And I like to be around a family who sit down and discuss different ideas about life. I like to be around people, all people. I like all people. I don't hate nobody.
Mr. Ellis, can you please share a little bit about your birthplace and upbringing?
I was born in Holdenville, Oklahoma, 1921, January 11, 1921. And after that, we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. We moved to Tulsa, I was only 5 months old. That's when the drought broke out. So we were sharecroppers that time. We had came from Holdenville. And on the way we got out of town on a horse and a wagon buggy. We didn't have an automobile like a lot of other people did. We were sharecroppers. We'd go from town to town and city to city and work on farms, like planting cotton, picking cotton, stuff like that, hay. So that's what my dad did. We did. After that route, we got out of it, we moved to a place called Clamor, Oklahoma. And I grew up all over the state of Oklahoma. Sometimes we'd move to Kansas, sometimes we'd move back to Oklahoma, just different places.
There was a dark and tragic day in history of Tulsa known as the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Can you tell us how old you were and what you remember about the horrific day?
I was only 5 or 6 months old. My sister Val was about 6 years old. Later in the years, she tried to tell me a little about it and told me that during that time, they heard shooting and going on as far as stuff, and they told us try to get out of town. They said it was burning and shooting and killing, dragging people in the streets. They said they'd go in the house, set the curtains afar. Back in there, there wasn't no water. We didn't have any running water, so you had to get out of that house. See, we just barely got out of there. It was late at night, and we got out of there just went out sleeping clothes on. We didn't have time to put our clothes on. We just lucky to get out, late at night.
What was it like growing up in Tulsa during its time of prosperity?
Well, growing up in Tulsa, me being a few years after that, I used to go to Tulsa State with my sister Viola in the 30s. And that was when I went back then, the Black Wall Street was doing pretty good now as well as it was when it first started. So they had their own funeral home, they had their own hospitals, they had their own nurses, they had their own cab service. Back then, they had their own tailor shops. The women had their hat shops. You could walk in and have a hat made, or walk in there later and lay you up for a dress. It wasn't as done as well as it did, they tell me before the massacre, but they did build some back.
What does the term Black Wall Street mean to you?
It means a whole lot to me. Just think, you come and build something, then you get it destroyed. And it takes opportunity away from the people, like probably that wouldn't happen now. I had about a better opportunity in life, Right now, I don't think a lot of people don't trust. You build something, you might think it's gonna get destroyed, so quite a few black people have a little business, but not like it was Black Wall Street.
Can you explain the recent and significant court decisions regarding a lawsuit you and others have filed related to the Tulsa Race Massacre?
Well, last time we were in court, they want the case to continue, but the judge decided to throw it out, but it's been 6 months, let's see, I was in June. It's been during a year now. And she decided to continue the case. The attorneys had enough evidence there to make her believe it. Justice to be done.
What should justice look like from the descendants of the massacre?
It's good. The descendants of they'll benefit from that. And young people will benefit from it. They'll know what history is. I think it would be a better world if everybody knew about history. And a lot of them don't know about no history. A lot of them have never heard of it, about the Wall Street Massacre. They never heard about it. And I think it'd be education to young people mostly.
What is your message to the United States concerning the Tulsa Race Massacre?
My message to the United States, we want justice. We want something did about it. We want something did about it right now. Let us have justice for everybody, not only just black people, but people. And I would think that would help our country. When something is done wrong, correct it. That's what I think.
What would you have to say to people that still are thinking that we should be separated in colors and cultures and things like that?
I think that's wrong. We all one America. We're supposed to be one America. That's what I think. I think it would be a better life. Just let me be in America like everybody else. That's the problem. We all one people. We all supposed to be one America. We built the United States for freedom of speech. We all human beings. That's what I think.
What would you like to say to people that are still affected by these events?
I would like to say this: you have to keep living. You're not going to forget it, but you just have to keep living. And hope. Keep your hopes up. I think things going to get better. I hope this clears up. I hope this year clears it up.
What is your message to younger generations concerning the Tulsa Race Massacre?
Our message to them, I would like them to know about history. That was taken away from, they don't know anything about history. And my message, I hope it gets where in schools and books, and they'll learn more about history. We were taught not to say anything back in those days. Our parents tell us, don't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. See, a couple of years ago, my sister, she was mentioned to her grandson, my nephew Ike, and she mentioned about the route. And that's where this got started. They started working and digging up history and all what had happened, when it happened, what had happened, back in there. So my thing is that I'd like for young people to know. A lot of young people don't know about it. A lot of old people don't know about it. They've never heard about it. So that's what I'm concerned about. Let people know about what happened back in there.
How does it make you feel that a lot of schools aren't talking about a lot of African American history?
When I was coming, like I said, older people say, don't talk about it. Let the young people know. See, young people got to keep on leading the world, so let them know what's happening. And I'm glad that I understand there's some books out on it. I've had a lot of interviews, so it's finally getting around. Some of them pretend they don't know, but they know. They don't want to talk about it. But it's out there. It's out there. So that's a good thing. So I call this year a good year.
What would you say to a young person like me who's about to set foot on their own path?
Be strong, believe in yourself. If you haven't got an education, go to school. Get an education. Good education. That's gonna help you through life. That's my suggestion.
Ed Dwight's artistic portfolio is nothing short of prolific, amazingly so. His body of work includes memorials and sculptures across the country depicting the Underground Railroad, the historical roots of jazz, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, President Barack Obama, to name but a few. Mr. Dwight is credited with committing history to physical memory in places like Austin, Texas, with a 40-foot-long, 26-foot-tall memorial to African American history. And of course, his 27-foot-tall cylindrical Tower of Reconciliation, located in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Well, I'm Joshua Ray, and it is an honor to sit down here and interview you.
Well, Joshua, I'm Ed Dwight, and I'm a sculptor. I've done a lot of other things in my life besides sculpting, but that thing on the gravestone, I wanted to read sculpture par excellence and stuff.
I think you did a lot of great things to bring young African Americans like myself to reach and go to different levels, and you inspire many people, so I just want to thank you for that. And my first question is, who has inspired you in your life to shape you as the person that you are now?
Yeah. Well, I have to start with the basics, My mom set an interesting table for me because I started school when I was 2 years old, and she had me in every art class and got me a library card at 4, and got me on as an altar boy when I was 5, and got me in the Cub Scouts when I was 6, and Boy Scouts when I was 7, and it just went on with her kind of guiding. My mom had a college degree, so she kind of knew where she was coming from, and of course, since I was a little kid, she took care to show me what the world was all about, and what kind of things that grew that made food, and gave me lessons on the Milky Way and orbital mechanics that I ended up finding out. I didn't know what orbital mechanics was until I got in the space program, and my mother was teaching me all this stuff when I was 3 or 4 years old. And then my dad, in a kind of a different approach, he was not a very talkative. He was kind of, he went to the 10th grade school and dropped out of school. But what was magic about watching my dad and the contrast between him and how educated my mom was, but my dad had something to offset that, and he left school at the age of 16 to play professional baseball. So he played in the Negro Baseball League and was a star in the Negro Baseball League, with the 10th grade education. But at the end of the day, things come together in strange ways. The owner of the Kansas City Monarchs baseball team, his brother was a PhD chemist. So when my dad left baseball, he got my dad a job working in his chemical lab. And 20 years later, my dad was the chief chemist of the state grain department for the state of Kansas. So now you say, what in the world, how could that happen? I mean, this guy with a 10th grade education, and he was a George Washington Carver of chemistry, and the guy was brilliant as a chemist, but he was taught by the right people, and so I have to give it props to both my mom and dad, but I didn't ever have any trouble getting mentors. Because as a kid, I was always doing things. The guy named Phil Borth that owned KC Photo. And I got a job working for him delivering film for him at 15. And the reason I'm saying, because all these guys, you asked a question about mentorship. And naturally, I'm going to school. It was a part-time job, naturally. And I was so precocious to him. This guy taught me film, photography. And next thing you know, I'm in charge of his developing room. When I turned 17 or 18, this man, a 60-year-old man who had been in that business his whole life, offered me his business. And he said, I'll sell it to you for nothing because I'd been working for this guy for a couple of years, right? And I had known, these people outside didn't know that I was developing their film, he put me in charge of the film room and the whole thing, and the enlarging room, and I knew photography. And I was this kid, and this man is going to give me his business. And well, what's up with that, But I chose to join the Air Force instead, and this guy got mad at me. I mean, he said, how dare you? You're perfect for this job. So why wouldn't you take it? This is an opportunity. But my mom pulled my coattail, and she said, son, if he gave you that business, do you think all the rest of those white businesses are going to continue to do business with this guy, with the company? And the answer was no. But I had mentors coming out of the woodwork everywhere, and I came to the conclusion the more things that you're really interested in and you do them well, whatever they are, mentors start falling out of the sky.
You are many different things, and a number of titles, including the first African-American astronaut candidate, an engineer, and a sculptor. What drives you to be motivated to accomplish all these things?
Well, Mom taught me that, first of all, she told me how wonderful America was and about people who need things. And that the best thing I could do was to start, when I got to be a real guy, to start fulfilling the needs of folks and stuff. And I look back on everything I've done, and it all dropped out as a need pattern. When I saw somebody that needed something, I was there. Because when I was in the Boy Scouts, if you help a little old lady across the street, you get across the street too, And I adopted that attitude. And when I got in the military, I started changing things that I could change at my level. And the black enlisted kids that came in, I mentored them and to help them out, and they died just saying, I want to go to work for Lieutenant Dwight because he gets in and understands what we're doing and to help us, because I saw a pattern happening in the military, and I was an officer, right? And I would sit and watch. You'd have black enlisted people that had been there for a time. And these white kids would come in, and the blacks would train them. And next thing you know, these white kids are getting promoted over the people that trained them. But I just saw it was an inequity, and I just, there's something wrong with that. And the same thing happened when we were trained, when I was a flight instructor. We were training pilots from all over the world. They gave me all the white guys from Norway and Denmark, and they gave all the brown guys from Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Japan, and they gave them to the white guys. Okay, and they were washing these brown guys out like you won't believe. And so I went to Captain Joseph. I said, Captain Joseph, I said, what's going on here? I said, all these white guys that are graduating, all my guys are white and all that kind of stuff, and the other guys had their white guys too. But all the brown guys are getting washed out. What's going on? And Captain Joseph said, it's none of your business. And so about a week later, and apparently he had done a little bit of research, he calls me in and says, Lieutenant Dwight, you're right. I said, what's your solution? I said, well, give all the brown ones to me. And I started graduating these kids. And it didn't have a dang thing to do with their qualifications at all. It had to do with the language barrier. Because these white guys were saying, do this, and there's a language in flying away. And these guys didn't understand that, because a lot of buzzwords in flying, that a white kid would understand that they didn't understand. And I was graduating these kids like you won't believe, and I got an award for that, And so you asked me why I do this stuff, and it has to be when I see something that's out of kilter, out of whack. First of all, I got to decide whether I can do anything about it or not. But when opportunities came that I could do something about it, well, hell, I didn't care anything about it being none of my business. I just thought there was something wrong with it.
When did you realize that sculpting would be your career? Did this come easy for you?
When I realized that art was going to be my career, I was 2. I was 2 years old. But I had this knack for making images from the beginning, and I got a scholarship out of high school. I had won the first 3 ribbons in the Kansas art competition in the state of Kansas, and that had never been done before. And so the nuns, I went to a private Catholic school, so the nuns took it to Kansas City Art Institute, took those paintings over there, and they gave me a scholarship to go be the first black to go to the Kansas City Art Institute. So I was heading straight for the art world. And my dad sat down and got a hold of me, and he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be an artist. He said, no, you're not. He said, I'm not going to take care of you the rest of your life, boy, And so I said, what do you think I should be doing? She said, you're going to engineering school. And I said, well, what do they do? He said, what do you mean, what do they do? In my brain, we had a railroad track that went right past the farm every day. And I'd go out there and I'd wave at the engineer who's driving the train. So my old man told me I was going to be an engineer. I said, Dad, I don't want to drive no train. And he said, what the hell's wrong with you, boy? You crazy? But I'm talking about an engineer. I said, well, what do they do? And he said, they make money. That's all you need to know. They have architectural engineering. And so I can draw. So I went to college, and I was going to be an architectural engineer, and that would satisfy him. And I could draw, I could still draw and design things and stuff like that, And so anyway, that's where I was headed. I got an opportunity to be a pilot, so I chose that.
How do you feel about your life's pathway?
Well, when you're doing it, you don't think in those terms. To me, everything I've ever done is all connected to each other. I mean, there's nothing, because people look at it and say, well, what are you talking about? You was over here doing astronaut stuff and military stuff, and over here you're building buildings over here, and over here you got this big restaurant chain, you're selling people food, and over here you got this thing going, and over here you got that thing going. And to me, that was all connected to me, it was all connected together. And there were opportunities. Every single one of those things was a classic opportunity to do something bigger and better than they had done before. But it had to do with helping folks. It was every one of those things I did was helping to fulfill a need. Because when I got into the construction business, the need was black housing in Denver, Colorado. There was no black housing hardly. We didn't have kind of big time ghettos with hundreds and hundreds of apartments like Chicago and some of these other places. We didn't have that. And it was 60,000 blacks in the state of Colorado. And you go back east, there's 60,000 blacks in 4 or 5 blocks, and so we didn't have that impacted stuff, but this stuff did come up about where does black housing exist? Is there black housing? Is there a need for black housing in Denver? Because when I first came to Colorado, blacks could not live east of York Street, okay, which is not far from here. After I got out of the military, I came to Denver, and I was the first black to live on Montview Boulevard, across the street from the museum. In my restaurant chain, I'm from Kansas City, and they have good barbecue in Kansas City. So obviously, I wanted some barbecue, Kansas City barbecue in Denver. And so I built my own barbecue rib chain, and I designed my own barbecue sauce and hooked up with the Department of Agriculture for all my recipes. I designed it. Took me a year. So I had 5 restaurants, one in Fort Collins and one downtown and one in Inglewood, one on West Colfax and one on Colorado Boulevard. So anyway, I had all these restaurants, but I did it so we could have some good barbecue in Denver, So as a result of that, to answer your question, all of these things all kind of fit together in a larger plan to bring equity, if you will, to things that were needed. But those are the challenges, and it was the whole thing. It was a bunch of fun when you sit down to think about it, So I've done all of these things, but it was fulfilling a need.
What is or has been important to you?
What's kind of important to me? Like I'm kind of losing my eyesight now, and the thing I don't worry about. I'm not worried about the money. If I stop doing what I'm doing right now, I don't worry about the money. I kind of worry a little bit about missing what I'm doing because I love what I do. You know what I mean? But the thing that's critical to me is my clients. All the rest of the stuff can go. If I never made another dime in my life, I want these clients to be happy, and I want them to finish their dream because they come to me to manifest their dream. And I got a group of people that I make commitments to, and that's one of the things that's important to me right now is making them happy. Nothing else.
What would you say to a young person like me who's about to set foot on their own path?
Well, the world is wide, especially today. The world is wide open for you to do anything you want, any dream you could possibly have. And it's all about preparing for it and getting ready for it. And if you're really interested in something, there's Google. There are things where you can do research you can't believe, okay? There's Wikipedia. All the stuff that Wikipedia gives you came from books. And if you go down to the bibliography, there's all those books that they got it from. So that's where I went, for the information that I needed. And I went and got those books wherever they were, through Amazon or whatever, to sit down and figure out, where was I going to be prepared for what this dream, if I had a dream. First of all, you got to get a dream. That's the first order of business, okay? What are you interested in? And you really got to be interested in it, whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference, But be the best, whatever it is that you can be. Because in everything that we talked about just now had to do with people coming to me and offering me stuff. Hardly any of that stuff, except for the barbecue rib thing, came from Ed Dwight. But the rest of the stuff, people came to me and said, I think you can do this. Well, I'm offering you an opportunity to do this. Whether it was flying, whether the astronaut, the whole astronaut thing was all about that. It was about my body of work. What was I doing? How good was I doing it? Was I at the top of my game? And so when the president was looking for a black astronaut, I mean, they had to go find one. Where do you find a black astronaut? So you go find somebody that's been doing something really, really well and getting rewarded for it. And that's how they, out of all the black pilots in the world at that time, why Ed Dwight? What was it about me? And it was my body of work, because I had done it very, very well. And I was getting an award every other month, either just finishing another college thing or fixing something within the operational unit that I was in. And I had the greatest jobs in the world, and I did them all well. But I worked my fanny off to get ready for them, whether I was doing the intelligence briefing to the general staff. And, you know, I was on the San Francisco Air Traffic Control Board. I was the youngest member of the Air Traffic Control Board. And I'm on a board as a captain in my 20s with 7 company presidents of 7 airlines. What's that all about? You know, and what that was all about was that I volunteered to go to air traffic control school in Oklahoma City when the opportunity came up to do that. You know, and I had done all that stuff and did it well. So when the president came to look for a black astronaut, my name fell out. You know, here's a guy that can, man, this guy, he's doing everything seemingly very, very well. And the requirement was the last 3 effectiveness reports that you had that the officers get every year, the last 3 had to be rated outstanding for me to become an astronaut, okay? Well, my last 4 were rated outstanding. And so it's that kind of stuff I'm saying. That, but whatever the dream is, you got to stay with it, find a mentor, and listen to what he says. And it was great to have you here in my studio and being interested in doing this stuff and interviewing me. And so this is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope you walk away with something from here. I mean, I really hope that talking to me and being in this environment with all these people who are trying to do great things is just to listen to what they're saying. And if you've got anything that you need answers to after this whole thing is over, give me a holler and just give me a ring to say, hey, Mr. Dwight, what would you do in a case like this? All right, well, thanks a lot again. Okay.
To learn more about Mr. Ellis's story, which is still unfolding today, please visit justiceforgreenwood.org. And to learn more about Mr. Dwight's continuing artistic inspirations and to view his incredible sculptural masterpieces, please visit eddwight.com. To continue the growth and development of educational and community resources centering Black folks, we invite you to both support and plan to visit History Colorado's Black History and Cultural Heritage Department, the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, the Black American West Museum and Heritage Center, and the Center for African and African American Studies on the CU Boulder campus.